Hello from me and my cup of tea. Today we've got a bit of a sit down chatty video. I really want to try and do more of these, so let me know in the comments down below if you have any topics you want me to talk about. And today I'm going to be talking about 10 lessons I have learnt in my 20s. I'm turning 30 in just a few short months time. I'm having a little bit of an identity crisis at this point because I am not ready to turn 30, but here we are. My 20s have been an absolute roller coaster with some incredible highs and some challenging lows, and I feel like I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. So let's hop in. I have a lot to talk about. By the way, this is the Yorkshire Tea Biscuit Brew with Rude Health Oat Milk, and it is banging. So, lesson one. There's this sentence which I live by and which just gives me a lot of perspective in certain situations. If you had their life experience, you would do the same as what they've done. So before you judge somebody else for an action that they've taken and you think, I would never do that, just think about what has happened to them in order to enable them to be in that position to take that action. For example, something small and menial, you're in traffic and somebody's got some crazy road rage and they're shouting out the window at you, swearing and blinding, and you're thinking, wow, why are they acting like that? I can't believe they're doing this. But maybe they've had a really awful morning, they've had some terrible news about their family, or they've had some life experiences where they've been surrounded by anger and that has led them to be somebody who expresses their emotions through anger. I just kind of feel like the sentence of, if you'd had their life experiences, you would do the same, gives me so much perspective, because I think it's easy to push our own expectations on other people, but when we realise that they come from their own background, their own experiences, their own mindset, their own life, it's much easier to have more compassion towards other people and their behaviour. So that's definitely been a big lesson that I have learnt in my 20s. Lesson number two is a big one, and that is that life is fragile. I think when you first come into your 20s, you're coming out of your teenage years and you feel like you're just this invincible human being where you can get through anything, life isn't going to throw anything at you that you can't handle, and then suddenly you realise as you get older, life is fragile and things can be taken away from you in the blink of an eye. For example, when my bowel twisted when I was 26, 27 years old and I was rushed to hospital, had emergency surgery, that was a massive reality check for me, because I realised that my body had done this to me and I had no control over it. Nothing I could have done with my lifestyle could have stopped that happening. It was a random series of events that led to me having to have this large abdominal surgery. And my freedom got taken away from me for a while and I had to go through a recovery process for 3 months out of nowhere. And it just made me completely realise that life is fragile, life is uncontrollable. Don't take your health for granted, because anything can happen. And that doesn't just apply to your own health, that applies to the health of the people that you love. I definitely think that as I've come into my late 20s, I've become acutely aware of the fact that the people I love are aging, not just my parents, but other family members, my friends, the man that I love, and everybody is aging. And I don't know, it's kind of terrifying and very grounding, and just makes you realise that, yeah, we don't live forever. I think we're often in denial about our own mortality, and then when you see people like your parents getting old, you kind of realise, oh shit, yeah, it's going to end one day, and not just for me, but for everybody around me. I mean, that's a bit of a heavy lesson, but basically, don't take your health for granted, and don't take the health of those you love for granted, because it can change in a heartbeat. All right, let's move on to lighter topics. Number three, take time away from stimulation and input. I'm somebody who loves to always have a podcast on, music on, an audio book on, a YouTube video on. I like to have something on in the background, but I actually think that me constantly doing that, I actually thought that was good for me. I used to think that I need to always be listening to something, I need to always be learning, I need to always be stimulating myself so I can grow and learn and develop and progress and evolve. But I actually realised that there's so much value in silence and in taking time away from the noise of life, including educational information. So when I go for a country walk or just a walk in the woods near me, I don't need to always have a podcast plugged in. I don't need to always be on a phone call. I don't need to always be doing something with my ears. I can just like be. And actually there's so much importance in just being in silence, because that actually gives me the space and time to process things, to clear my headspace and to gain clarity on lots of things in my life. So yeah, I think that's been a big thing for me. I went through a push in my early 20s of learn, always be learning, always be exposing myself to information. And then as I've come into my late 20s, I've kind of realised, actually, embrace the silence, because it's really important. Lesson number 4 is that the vast majority of us don't actually feel like we're truly heard very often in our lives. And one of the most valuable things that you can do for the people around you and the people you love is truly listen to them and listen more than you speak. This is definitely something that I'm working on because I am somebody who loves to chat, and sometimes I just love the sound of my own voice. Let's be honest here, guys. I just like chat away about stuff. I just fill the silence with chat because I just love sharing. But I actually think it's so important, and it's something that I've learned and that I value, and I want to provide that value to other people. And that is the power of listening and the power of being in a conversation. And when somebody's telling you about something that they're going through, especially if they're opening up and being vulnerable, just listening and not chipping in with your own experiences, not chipping in with your opinions of what they should do, but just giving them the space to be heard and to feel like you're truly listening to them. I think nowadays it's just really, really rare to feel like you're being heard, because I think even when you're in a conversation with somebody, they can just pick up their phone and be doing this while they're talking to you, and then you think, do they care what I'm saying because they're on Instagram at the same time? I just think that attention is one of our biggest commodities and our most valuable things that we have right now, and if you can give your undivided attention to somebody, it really shows your respect for them and your value for them, and they will appreciate that so much. Number 5 is that you can define your own identity. We think that we have been put in a box of who we think we are because of what other people tell us we are or what we tell ourselves we are, but we don't have to fit into any box. We don't have to fit into any label or any identity. We can reinvent ourselves whenever we want to, and we have that power. We just need to realise that we can do it. We can change our mind on who we want to be. So you can go into a social situation where you don't know anyone, and you can decide to be somebody else to how you already perceive yourself. For example, you could be somebody who, when you were at university, was like, I don't put my hand up in class, I'm not somebody who contributes in class. But then when you come into your professional setting, you can decide that you want to be that person who contributes. You can decide that you want to be that person who is engaged and who puts their hand up and who volunteers for things, and you can choose that identity for yourself. Instead of telling yourself, I'm somebody who doesn't do that, I'm somebody who isn't comfortable doing that, I'm somebody who isn't confident doing this or doing that, or in this situation or with that person, or volunteering in this scenario, you can decide, actually, I'm going to be that person who is and who can do that, and you have the power to define your own identity. And my example, which I have used in my 20s, was me telling myself for many, many, many years that I'm not somebody who can handle heights, I'm not somebody who can rock climb, I'm not somebody who can do anything with heights, basically. Even for my 25th or 26th birthday, I took a group of friends to the Peak District and I booked us a rock climbing experience, and everybody else rock climbed except me on my birthday because I was just like, oh, I just don't do that. I'm just not a rock climbing person, I'm scared of heights. And then when I went to Mexico in 2021, which is last year, I decided to myself, I'm going to be somebody who's not scared of rock climbing, and I did it, and I wasn't scared. And I know that sounds crazy, but I genuinely think that for me, that fear was all in my mind, and all I had to do was decide, just get to that point and just decide, I'm not going to be scared of this, and I am going to be somebody who climbs rocks and who isn't scared of heights, and who conquers their fears, and who steps out their comfort zone, and who just does it. You know what? I did it. And it was a huge lesson for me in that I can define who I am, how I feel, and what I want to do, and my identity. Number 6 is a quote from a YouTube video, which I will leave linked down below. And the video is called Why You'll Marry the Wrong Person. Don't be put off, it's actually amazing. And in that video, he says this quote: love is not just admiration for strength, it's also tolerance for weakness and recognition for ambivalence. And I know that probably sounds, well, I don't know how that sounds, but it's something which I have taken on board and I've taken a lot from. He's basically saying that in all of our relationships in our life, not just romantic ones, but in our family relationships, our friendships, and our romantic relationships, other people are not perfect. There are things which you will have to learn to tolerate about other people. And if you go into a relationship or a friendship or any sort of connection with another human being expecting perfection, you will be a lonely person, because they will never, ever, ever live up to your expectations of perfection, because no other human being is perfect. A true sign of loving somebody and accepting somebody is tolerating the bits which aren't quite perfect in your eyes, because ultimately, if that small little thing which is imperfect you have to tolerate is outweighed by a million other things that you really value about that person, tolerating that little thing, that's love. That's love. And not trying to change them, not trying to make them to somebody else, just accepting that thing that you can't change, that thing is a part of them, and you love them for all aspects of them, not just all these amazing bits, but this little thing that you find quite challenging. You love them for that as well, because that's who they are, and that's what makes them them, and you need to stop trying to change them. And that is a lesson that I have learned, for sure. And it's a lesson which I think is so important, because ultimately, I'm not perfect, and as a partner to Ant, as a friend to my amazing people in my life, as a family member, I'm not perfect. There's going to be things which those people have to tolerate about me, and I expect them to tolerate them. So I need to tolerate things about other people which I find challenging. So again, love is not just admiration for strength, it is also tolerance for weakness and recognition for ambivalence. So love is just accepting somebody for every single part of themselves, not just the really good bits, basically. We're all human and we all have imperfections. Lesson number 7 is one which I feel like I've pretty much learned, but still sometimes I struggle with this, but I'm really, really working on it. And that is that your value is not tied purely to your productivity. Your value lies in who you are, how you treat people, how you make other people feel, the positive change that you can push for in your own life and in other people's lives around you, and you can inspire in those people. That is your value. Your value isn't just in your productivity. Your value is in you as a whole, fully formed human being, not just how hard you work or how much work you get done. There's so much more to you than your productivity. You don't have to have a productive day to have a good day. That's a lesson that I need to learn, and I'm still learning and I'm working on it. I understand it, but still I have guilt if I don't have a productive day. But it's actually really, really important for me personally to realise productivity is not the only measure of my worth, and there's other things about me that make me really valuable, and that's not just my output every day in terms of workload. And it's okay for me to have days where I just chill, and days where I don't open my laptop, and days where I just relax and don't push myself super hard and just, you know, don't be productive. Zanna, I need to learn this lesson, I really do. I'm trying, okay? I'm definitely getting better, guys. Definitely getting better. Lesson number 8 is that friendships change, friendships evolve, friendships can come and go in and out of your life, and that is okay, because it's really, really, really blooming rare for you to find another human being and for your paths to stay like this for your whole life, to stay perfectly aligned with each other. It's actually much more common for you to meet somebody and then your paths to kind of like do this, and even sometimes go like this and not come back together. But actually it's quite normal for paths to waver and come in and out and cross-sect and then leave, and cross-sect and then leave, come closer, go further apart. That's fine. You don't have to keep this super close knit of friends where you're perfectly aligned for your whole life, and if you do, like, I'm happy for you. But I actually think that it's really, really common for that to not be the case. As you evolve, the people around you evolve, and I think it's sometimes challenging because if you're like me and you really value human connection, and also you're a bit of a people pleaser, you want to hold people close and keep them really nice and tight knit and close to you. But the reality is that in life, you sometimes just have to let go, let people go in their own directions and hope they come back to us. And sometimes they're not meant to come back to us, but sometimes they are. There's definitely been friendships that I've had where we've drifted apart for maybe a year, 18 months, 2 years, even like 8 years, people from school I didn't talk to for a while, and then we come back together. And it's amazing, and I think you can come back and realign with each other, and that's perfectly okay. But similarly, I also think we shouldn't be trying to hold on to friendships which aren't working and trying to make friendships work which don't make us happy. Ultimately, as we grow up, as we evolve, as I said, our friendships evolve, and it's okay for them to change as we change, and for people to come and go out of our lives. And I actually think there's so much value in making new friends as an adult. I personally, the vast majority of my friends have come in my 20s because I feel like they've met me as I am, as a 20-year-old woman. I don't think I was the same person as who I am now in my teenage years. I'm like a completely different human being to the woman I was in my teenage years. So for people to stay with me from then to now is a miracle, because I've changed so much. Whereas I feel like the people I've met in my 20s have met me as somebody who isn't quite fully formed, but who's almost there. They've met me as somebody who I feel really happy in myself and who I am, and I feel like I know myself. So the friends that I've met in my 20s know me as somebody who, I don't know, I know my identity, I know who I am, I know what my interests are, and I feel like it leads us to create an even stronger bond. So yeah, definitely don't be afraid to make friends in your 20s and 30s and beyond, because it's really nice to meet people when you're already like an adult. Lesson number 9, my penultimate lesson, is that vulnerability breeds connection. And I'm somebody who it's hard to explain this because I am like an open book. I'll open up about stuff, but in terms of really deep, emotional, vulnerable stuff, I'll kind of tuck that down. Like I'll open up about surface level things and I'll be open about my life, and certain things I'm very willing to share with people that I meet. But then there's also parts of myself which I definitely keep under wraps, and when I do share them I feel like really scared and vulnerable. And sometimes it's easier for me to just put a wall around those really delicate, vulnerable things and not open up and not share them with other people. But something that I've definitely learned in my 20s is that when I break down those walls, break down those barriers and share things which feel really daunting to open up about, that is what breeds the ultimate connection with other people, and that is what makes you feel more supported, more loved, more reassured by those around me. I found that when I've opened up and shared my challenges and my fears with other people, it enables them to feel comfortable enough to open up themselves and also share their fears and challenges. And oftentimes I'll actually realise that I'm not alone in how I'm feeling, because in my head I might be thinking, I'm the only one who thinks this, I'm the only one who's scared about this, or who's challenged by this, or fearful of this, or upset about this. But actually, when I manage to finally pull my finger out and tell someone, I realise that other people are feeling the same way, and it makes me feel less alone. And also, as I said, it fosters that deeper connection with another human being, which actually I think is really important personally for my mental health. Ultimately, I think opening up and being vulnerable and sharing our struggles with the people around us and those that we love is what makes us human. And lesson number 10 is a light-hearted one, and that is, in England, always take an umbrella. Ain't that the truth? So yes, those are 10 lessons that I learnt in my 20s. I have had the most incredible 20s, and actually I'm kind of scared for my 30s because I feel like I've been so lucky and so privileged and so blessed to have such a blooming lovely 20s, a really great decade. How are things going to go in my 30s? Can it ever be topped? I don't know. I just had a really lovely time, and I feel so grateful that I can say that. So I'm kind of nervous in my 30s. I feel like it's a whole new decade, a whole new phase of my life, and how is that going to go? But I'm sure that by the time I finish my 30s, I'm going to have more than 10 new lessons to share with you guys. So you definitely need to stay tuned. Hopefully I'm still on the interwebs as I come to my late 30s, and I can share with you the lessons that I've learned in the next decade. And I really hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, let me know by hitting thumbs up, by leaving a comment, by subscribing, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.